Alright, people, review of the week time. So, before we talk boxing news, which is primarily what we do, we gotta talk about the fights that happened over the course of the weekend. Some we've already talked about on this channel with videos, some we haven't. Let's talk about the boxer show that was on in the Wembley Arena. Now, Azim faced Sergey Lipets, and to be honest with you, going into this fight, right? Well, actually, we'll talk a little bit about the undercard. I seen Jamie TKV versus Michael Webster. Yeah, Jamie TKV is he lost to, was it Dobashenko he lost to, or who was it? No, he beat Dobashenko. He lost really bad cuts, I think I remember, to a guy who was 11-1 called Igor Masede. He looks mean. He looks angry in that box rec picture, 32 years old. And he got the win there. His only loss actually came against Sergey Kuzmin, who's not a amazing heavyweight, but he's definitely got more miles in him, I think, than Jamie TKV. So I haven't been too impressed with him. It's in there against Michael Webster, who he did well in his first fight against Solomon Day, because some people feel like he won it, and then he lost comprehensively the second fight. So he's a kind of English level fighter, and Jamie TKV, I'd be very surprised if he could get any further than, say, kind of English, domestic, British level. I'd be very, very surprised. Callum Simpson was on this card as well. Now, he was defending actually his Commonwealth super middleweight titles. Now, Callum Simpson only fought a couple of weeks ago, maybe a fortnight, 3 weeks ago. You got to remember, Callum Simpson is a big ticket seller, and you'll often find with some of these shows, if there's ever a risk that it's not going to look full or it's going to look pretty bad, you'll often see, like, I'll give you a good example. Florian Marku, do you remember him? He's gone off the face of the earth. But when he signed with Boxer, and Boxer were doing shows, like, I remember Richard Riakporhe was headlining a Boxer show one night. I can't remember where that was. It might have been somewhere in London anyway. It actually could have been the Wembley Arena. I'm not 100% sure where it was. It was in London, I know that. And it might have been when he fought Glowacki. And, it was kind of a lukewarm type of fight. No one was really interested. And Richard Riakporhe is not a massive star, or certainly at the time. Well, he never really was a massive star. More, when he did, I think, didn't he do a show in Crystal Palace Stadium, Selhurst Park, against CBS? But that was kind of lots of football fans coming together. He was never a big name, and he went on before Florian Marku, because that place looked busy, looked lively, and that was because if Florian Marku had got on before him, it would have been absolutely derelict by the time Richard Riakporhe went on. So they will do that. Like, Callum Simpson did what he needed to do. He was in there with a guy on pretty short notice, and did what he needed to do. Azim versus Sergey Lipets. Now, Lipets at 140, and obviously this fight was at 140. He was a former champion. He lost, if I'm not mistaken, it was Mikey Garcia, wasn't it? He lost his first fight to. And I remember at the time, it was Mikey Garcia. He won a vacant IBF title in 2017. I remember Sergey Lipets at the time, because Terence Crawford at the time, he was mandatory for Crawford when Crawford was reign, or was it Crawford he was mandatory for, or was it Indongo? Because Lipets kind of came to the forefront back in 2017 when he was kind of the in-between between undisputed. Now, as it happened, Terence Crawford became undisputed at 140, he vacated all those belts, went straight to 147, so he picked up a world title, subsequently lost it to Mikey Garcia, and since then, Lipets hasn't really done much. Every time he stepped up, he's lost. He was comprehensively, he was brutally beaten by Boots Ennis nearly 4 years ago now. It was 21 when he fought Ennis. And that was behind closed doors, so you could hear the punches, and he really did take a pacing in that fight. So Lipets, it's not a prime Lipets to say the least, but Azim went in there, and he looked pretty good. Azim, I've always said this about Azim, I liked them, I liked watching them, but I felt that if he fought Dalton Smith, I would give the edge to Dalton Smith. Because I think Dalton Smith certainly at one stage appeared to be on the upward trajectory. Azim, when he came around and he was fighting the likes of Ryan Charlton and people like that, I was looking at him thinking, God, you're looking good. And they just seem to kind of, now I know he's very young, he's only 22, and he just seemed to stagnate for a little bit. But lately, his last couple of fights, maybe it's because the opposition has significantly improved. I know O'Hara Davis, Sergey Lipets, they're not what they once were, but they both have a little bit of danger to them. I mean, O'Hara Davis certainly could punch, and yeah, Adam Azim looked really, really good. There was a rumour, and look, again, rumours are what they are, so you take them with a grain of salt. You know, there are certain people in the boxing industry where if you hear something from them, you know, you do kind of say, oh, interesting. When you see boxing forums, and again, some are very, very good, some have their moments, as they say, broken clock is right twice a day. You take them with a grain of salt, right? And the rumour mill is that Adam Azim was touted by Turki Al-Sheikh for the undercard of Chris Eubank Jr., Conor Benn. And the names that were mentioned were Dalton Smith, Sean McComb, I can't remember who the other one was, but I know it was three names. I know it was Dalton Smith and Sean McComb were two of them, but I can't quite think who the third name was. Either way, the rumour mill is that they refused all them. Now that's a bit weird. You know, Adam Azim, he's got talent. I don't if you think so highly of him and you want to, you know, take him further, progress him, it just doesn't make sense to me. And certainly like Sean McComb, who's gone up, you know, tenfold in my opinion, after that fight he did against Arnold Barboza, where he was shockingly robbed. You know, they're the kind of names that you would want. You know, that's the way they're the kind of names that you want. I've also heard other things about Adam Azim through the years. I was not about him personally, but how boxers have been managing him. You know, I've heard them reach out to fighters and give them literally 3 weeks notice for an Adam Azim fight, and then be like, well, look, what am I supposed to do in 3 weeks? You know, and you know, not the best fighters in the world, but fighters who you would think of, look, even with a full camp, they wouldn't beat Adam Azim. Why are you giving them 3 weeks notice to hop in? You know, it is just weird. You know, and I think Adam Azim has a talent there. He definitely has speed. He definitely has a bit of punching power. So, yeah, boxer, I'll never understand boxer. I don't really want to be honest with you. Let's go over to the States. Now, Brandon Figueroa lost to Stephen Fulton. Now, that did surprise me because, look, I think Stephen Fulton is a very, very good fighter. But if you've seen him against Carlos Castrillo in his last fight, oh, good Lord, he looked absolutely shocking in that fight. He really did. He did say he has some personal issues going on at the time, and that we could, you know, maybe not judge him necessarily on that fight. He was coming off the loss to Inoue. And you're thinking, okay, but the last time you fought Figueroa, it was competitive. It was very competitive. And, you know, you looked worse for the wear in that fight, in your previous fight. So, you know, you're looking at that and you're like, how are you going to do? Well, he looked very well. And I have to say he did. He looked very well in that fight. He had the Timberland boots on, which I don't think I've ever seen. But, you know, credit to Stephen Fulton. Isaac Cruz, or Aisha Cruz, came back. I didn't actually see his fight, but he came back with a 10-round UD win over Angel Ferrero. And, you know, that's pretty much Jose Benavidez, you know, people like that. That was on the PBC undercard, but we got to talk about the main event, which was obviously Dave Benavidez versus Dave Morrell. Like I said, Benavidez, I thought, won the fight pretty clearly, 8 rounds to 4. It was a great fight. Benavidez's punch output is just, he's one of the best pressure fighters in the game, I think, now. He's very cute with his defense. There was things in there that I felt Morrell could have done. I could have made this fight closer, or maybe potentially shifted in his favour. He didn't do it. He neglected to go to Benavidez's body. He neglected the right hook, which was there for him for most of the night. When he did throw it, he had success, but he just didn't throw it enough. So I think that Benavidez, great performance. I think that someone like Morrell, if he has a chance to review that fight or rewatch it, he'll look and think, damn, I should have done this, I should have done that. Well, shoulda, woulda, coulda, you didn't do them. So Dave Benavidez now, and look, at the end of the day, that's not a damaging loss for Dave Morrell in the slightest. He'll come back. You know, it's only his 12th professional fight. To be in there with Dave Benavidez and being very competitive with him in only your 12th fight speaks volume to the talent that Dave Morrell has. So he'll definitely come. He'll definitely be a force at light heavyweight. Mark my words on that one. Benavidez is now mandatory. I believe he probably will be first in line for the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol. If it's Beterbiev, that will be an absolute firefight. If it's Bivol, now if Bivol beats Beterbiev, you would imagine the Saudis would look to do a trilogy fight. If for whatever reason Beterbiev loses and he doesn't want to do it, he decides to sail off into the sunset, which I doubt really he'll want to do in a loss, but let's just say hypothetically he did. I genuinely think that Bivol would beat him, would beat Benavidez. I've said it before with Dimitri Bivol, right? He's been in there with guys, and Benavidez is bigger than him. I know he's the guy coming up, but you look at Benavidez in the ring, he's a unit. He's massive. He is bigger physically. I think he's taller than Bivol as well, but he is a bigger unit. He's a bigger specimen than Dimitri Bivol is. He's not the biggest light heavyweight in the world. Bivol's been in there with guys bigger than him, guys who can pressure, and they haven't done it. You know, I thought Zerdo would do a lot more against Bivol than he actually did. He was massive in there compared to Bivol, and I thought he would apply more pressure than he did. He didn't, and Bivol, that's probably maybe even his best performance to date, even better than the Canelo fight, because he looked so good in that fight. He looked so sharp in it. So I'd be picking Bivol heavily over Benavidez. Beterbiev, though, that would be interesting. Although Beterbiev is a great pressure fighter and he can box as well, he's got a great jab. Stu to Benavidez, the relentlessness, man, that would be something else. That would be something else. What else do we have? Let's get into the boxing news. Although saying that, there's not really been a great deal of boxing news, to be honest with you. I will, before I start reading the news, just say that TNT released footage. They released their I'm just trying to save the battery life on the phone there by putting low mode on. TNT released their own face-to-face of Daniel Dubois, Joseph Parker. It had Carl Frampton in Ade's position. I would imagine it was filmed on the same day. Now, in my opinion, the Zones one was better for a variety of reasons. And one thing about the DAZN one that I kind of was critical about was that it wasn't just both fighters. It was Dubois, Parker, Ade, and then it was Frank Warren, Andy Lee. And I thought, just leave the fighters be, let the fighters be. Yeah, I see now why they did it. Because I watched it and I wanted to see, okay, is there anything in this TNT one? You got to bear in mind that it's just both guys that maybe we didn't see in the DAZN one. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I get why they brought Warren and Andy Lee in there, because it was not there was nothing really to this face-off that we haven't already seen. There was less aggro in this one. There was less kind of fire between the two guys. It was just, Joseph Parker saying, I'm coming into my prime, I've learned from things. Dubois saying, I'm going to win, this, that, and the other. There wasn't a great deal to take from it. Certainly with the DAZN one, you had Daniel Dubois, sticking his neck in it by bringing up Joe Joyce and stuff like that to Joseph Parker, in spite of the fact that, you lost to Joe Joyce yourself, man. You lost to him in 10 rounds. Yeah, you were competitive, but, you still lost. This one was more, this was hard. This was a hard watch. It didn't really tell me anything. It's still more of the same. Similar questions were asked, Dubois, are you overlooking Parker? Going up to Alexander Usyk, calling him out in the immediate aftermath of his win over Tyson Fury. And Daniel Dubois being Daniel Dubois, just, we're building a fight, and this, that, and the other. Look, Dubois he's not going to come out and say, I'm overlooking Joseph Parker. But for me, from the outside looking in, it does look that way. And Joseph Parker, to take something from that face-to-face, is that he brought up the fact that Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder are already signed to fight one another in 23 going to 24, and he was the spanner in the works. He was the guy who upset the apple cart, so to speak. So, and he's right, and it has happened before on these Saudi shows. It will inevitably happen again. At the end of the day, you can plan a fight down the road. You can do that. But if you're going to put both guys who you're planning on matching together in very competitive fights, don't be surprised if one of them loses. And that's what happened with Wilder and Joshua. Obviously, Joshua didn't lose, Deontay Wilder did. And it could very well happen here again. So there was that. Ryan Garcia has committed to random drug testing with VADA and the California State Athletic Commission ahead of his fight against Rolly Romero in May. All right, let's see what happens this time. Ryan Garcia, God only knows what he'll do. The ring has learned that Naoya Inoue has his 2025 season, or year I should say, planned out. So he'd already fought last week against Ye Yun Kim. He's going to be back out in June in Las Vegas, Nevada. Alan Pizzacco? I've literally never heard of this guy, but he's going to be fighting him in Las Vegas in June. September, he's going to have a homecoming fight in Japan. So back to Japan in September, all right. And then December, Riyadh season. Oh, people, they have a December card planned. And we know the last 2 December cards have been very, 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 very good. Very, 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 very good. So there we go. So that is his season, or his year, I should say, planned out. Adam Azim with a message to Dalton Smith following his 9th round stoppage win last night. Dalton Smith, you better be watching because you ain't that good, my friend. Well, I'm going to go out on a limb and say if they did fight, I would probably still edge Dalton Smith, but it's a very competitive fight. It's a very, very competitive fight. The speed of Azim, the accuracy of Dalton Smith, I think technically he is just a little bit more correct, Dalton Smith. So it's an interesting fight. Teofimo Lopez versus Richardson Hitchens is now close to being finalised, with dates expected to be in May or June. The ring has learned Lopez's ring and WBO Super Lightweight World titles will be on the line, as well as Richardson IBF. That will be an interesting scrap. You know, Teofimo Lopez at 140, for every good performance, and really Josh Taylor really is the only real decent performance. For every good performance, he's had a couple of lukewarm ones, and he certainly doesn't appear to have the same pop at 140 that he did at 135. He doesn't appear to have that. So that could really be an interesting fight. It really, really could. Vladimir Klitschko is seriously considering a comeback to break George Foreman's record as the oldest heavyweight champion in history. Okay, I'll talk about that now in a second. There's not been much boxing news, so we'll talk about Vladimir Klitschko very briefly. I've already done a video on Klitschko and him wanting to break this record. Listen, records are there to be broken, and you know, I'm someone who loves seeing it. I love seeing records that are there ended up getting smashed or broken and stuff like that. I just don't see Klitschko breaking Foreman's record. One, because he's even older than Foreman was, and Foreman was no spring chicken when he won his world title at 45, nearly 46. He beat Michael Mora, a former light heavyweight champion who moved up to heavyweight, who always had chin issues at heavyweight. And yeah, he was not one of the main guys, and Foreman had been active. Although he hadn't fought in a year, when he went in there to fight Michael Mora, he was still an active contender in the heavyweight division. Vladimir Klitschko hasn't fought in nearly 8 years. Vladimir Klitschko was nearly 50, and the heavyweight division is not. You take Usyk out of the equation, right, and let's say you fragment the belts, you're looking at the likes of Zhilei Zhang, Martin Bakole, Adja Kabayel, Daniel Dubois, Moses Atauma as potential champions. All young, well, except for Zhang, all young, big punchers, athletic. It's just a different ball game to what Klitschko was dealing with when he was in his heyday, because the heavyweight division was so bad back then. It was terrible. It was really terrible. It was awful. And he's much older now, so I don't see that comeback going well now. To be honest with you, for Vladimir Klitschko, I really don't. Anthony Kakache has now vacated his IBF 130-pound world title instead of fighting his mandatory next at this stage of my career. I only want the biggest possible fight regardless of the belt that's on the line. The rumor mill is that he's going to be fighting Lee Wood. Lee Wood apparently is with Queensberry now. Apparently, so that's the rumor mill. So let's wait and see. Alex Krasuk has confirmed that Alexander Usyk will remain in boxing. He is not ready to retire just yet. One of the options for his comeback is actually cruiserweight. Now I doubt very much he's going to go to cruiserweight. I suspect if Daniel Dubois beats Joseph Parker, which is highly likely, I'm certainly picking him to win, that's what we'll see. That's what we'll see. We're probably in the last year of Alexander Usyk's career. So if he fights a Daniel Dubois, well, beats him again, what do you do then? You know, so Dubois could be his last fight. I reckon he's probably going to do 2 fights. So Dubois and a contender? Let's wait and see. That's pretty much most of the news. So I'm going to leave it there. Slightly shorter one, I think. I reckon we're in the 20-minute window with this one. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, people, if you haven't already. And until next time, I'll leave it there. Peace.